We received orders to pack up and be ready to move at a moment's notice. At 2 p.m., we, the 22nd Iowa and the 131st, embarked on an ocean steamer. We had a long trip ahead of us. It was wicked to pack men as they were packed on this boat. Surely they were to die off like sheep with the rot. We proceeded down the river out to the Gulf. The water was smooth. We passed Torgus Lighthouse and the Florida Reefs. This morning there was a funeral at 9 a.m. One of the 139th New York was coincided to an early watery grave, something I have read about and heard of but have never seen before. I think it was more solemn than placing a body in the earth. Samuel Calvin Jones, July 1864.
Infantry fought in closely knit formations of 2 ranks or rows, each man in the rank standing side by side. This formation was first devised when the single-shot, muzzle-loading musket became a normal weapon on the battlefield, the close ranks being a necessity because of the limitations of the musket. Yet by 1861, new technology had made the old-fashioned smooth-bore musket nearly obsolete with the introduction of the rifle. By the time of the Gettysburg Campaign, the rifle musket made up the majority of infantry weapons in both the Union and the Confederate armies, though it took much longer for the tactics to change.
If you're talking 1864, you'd probably find about 85% of the men, even in the Confederate Army, having rifled muskets. Not smoothbore, not more inaccurate weapons. But earlier in the war, you would find Confederate Union units that were armed with nearly everything you can imagine. Smoothbore muskets, short-barreled guns, double-barreled shotguns, men shooting what was called buck and ball. So picture a round ball and then 3 buckshot, double-aught buck, like a big BB, packed into a smoothbore musket. So when they shot, they'd be actually firing 4 projectiles at once. Not accurate, but just trying to cover the field with lots of lead. So their weapons just get better and better and better and more effective, more long range, deadlier. And so for the South, it really was a matter of time unless the war was badly managed by the North. And it was for a couple of years. This was not a sure thing as late as the summer of 1864 for the North.
Even with the advance of the rifle musket, the weapons were still muzzle loaders, and officers believed that the old-fashioned drill formations were still useful to ensure a massing of continuous firepower that the individual soldier could not sustain. The result of this slow change was a much higher than anticipated rate of casualties on the battlefield. Because of this, troops that were to make an attack would be massed together, elbow to elbow. If there were enough of them, and they ran fast enough, the defensive line could not hurt them seriously, and when they got to close quarters, the advantage of numbers and the use of the bayonet would settle things. But the Civil War musket was rifled, which made an enormous difference. It was still a muzzle loader, but it had much more accuracy and a far longer range than the old smooth bore. An advancing line could be brought under killing fire at a distance of half a mile, and mass charge of Napoleonic traditions was miserably out of date. When a defensive line occupied field entrenchments, which the soldiers learned to dig fairly early in the game, a direct frontal assault became almost impossible.
The general consensus among historians is the rifle changed the nature of warfare, because with rifles, which had an effective range of about 400 yards, they still got closer, but yet the rifles were more accurate technically. But regardless of the fact the rifles shot that far, the armies tended to get fairly close anyway to blast each other to pieces. So at a range of past 200 to 500 yards, it's hard to gauge how far they are, and these men were not especially well trained at estimating that distance and having their sights set for that. So you may see them from far away, but if you're not well trained at distance shooting like that, you're just going to miss until they got pretty close, and then you could really blast each other.
The hideous casualty lists of the Civil War battles owed much of their size to the fact that soldiers were fighting with rifles, but using tactics suited for smoothbores. It took the generals a long time to learn that a new approach was needed. A similar development was taking place in the artillery. The Civil War cannon, almost without exception, was a muzzle loader, but the rifled gun was coming into service, It could reach farther and hit harder than a smoothbore, and for counter-battery fire, it was highly effective. In fact, a rifled battery could hit a battery of smoothbores without even being hit in return, and the new 3-inch iron rifles, firing a 10-pound shot, had a flat trajectory and immense penetrating power. But the old smoothbore cannon, a brass gun of 4.62-inch caliber, firing a 10-pound spherical shot, remained popular to the end of the war. In the wooded, hilly countryside where so many Civil War battles were fought, its range of slightly less than a mile was about all that was needed, and for close-range work against infantry, the smoothbore was better than the rifle. As cannons got close to the front lines, they began to fire canisters, tin cans full of iron balls. When the gun was fired, letting iron balls be sprayed all over the landscape, in effect, the cannon became a huge sawed-off shotgun, and ranges of 250 yards or less would be highly fatal. The development of the Minié ball revolutionized warfare. While the slowness of Civil War military leaders to adapt their tactics to adjust to the new technology was greatly responsible for the overwhelming number of battlefield deaths, before the introduction of what soldiers commonly called the mini ball, even though it was indeed bullet-shaped, the use of rifles in battle was impractical and largely limited to the corps of elite marksmen. A Minié ball could reach half a mile or more, and on average the soldier could easily hit a target 250 yards away.
This bullet, called the Minié ball, named after Claude Minié, is a conical-shaped bullet that catches the rifling and comes spiraling out. So just like a spiral football, it's thrown much more accurately. Where a smoothbore ball might come out of a barrel and roll and tumble and be deadly at 40 yards, it could miss its man-sized target completely at 80 or 100 yards. I mean, just not even get close. The killing zone greatly expanded during the Civil War, which is why we have so many deaths on the battlefield.